Welcome to the LA Insider, the podcast that takes you inside the neighborhoods of Los Angeles through the voices of the people shaping them. I'm your host, Jason Anderson, a real estate agent in LA and your guide to the stories behind the city. Each week I sit down with local entrepreneurs, community leaders, and business owners to uncover what makes their corner of LA special, from hidden gems to big ideas and neighborhood-changing insights. We'll also explore the path to success that brought each of my guests to where they are today, their challenges, wins, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Whether you're exploring where to live, grow a business, or just want to understand the real LA, this show is for you. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the LA Insider. Today we're spotlighting another incredible person who's making a real impact in his industry. Let's dive into his story. Today we have Josh Lawler. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Josh is a partner at Zuber Lawler in Los Angeles, and he's also the chair of the firm's Emergency Technologies Practice Group. He's recognized. Oh, go ahead.
Emerging industry and technology.
Oh, did I wrong?
You had emergency, which is a very different thing.
Josh Lawler is a partner at Zuber Lawler in Los Angeles and the chair of the firm's Emerging Technologies Practice Group. He's recognized for pioneering legal work in blockchain, AI, and other advanced technologies. He's advising his clients in over 20 countries, and his greatest achievements include leading groundbreaking transactions, and developing regulatory strategies in the digital asset space. This makes him a trusted authority for companies navigating the frontier of technology law. That's not a phrase I hear too often, technology law.
Yeah, it's in some cases, unfortunately, a little oxymoronic. We're in a place now where, given the methodology we have for creating legislation, law is never going to be able to keep up with technology. Like it just can't happen. Technology is moving very fast, and it creates circumstances and situations that there's no way any lawmaker was ever going to anticipate. And then the lawmakers themselves, as elected officials, don't have a grounding in this stuff. And maybe they can bring somebody into their staff that has some understanding. The reality is that for a lot of things that are possible with technology, there's just no law that really makes sense. And it results in a few things. There's things out there that are not illegal that maybe should be. And there are things out there that aren't covered that should be perfectly legal, but scare people and don't fit into regulatory. And it's a mess, but it's my mess. I'm grateful and blessed to be dealing with that mess. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned how the government is usually a little bit behind on these kinds of things. Because isn't Congress still using like BlackBerries or something?
Yeah, I heard that a couple years ago, which was also well past when anybody else was using BlackBerries, but they were integrated enough into all of the federal agencies that they just could not use them. They were on them forever. If they're still on them, I'm not sure, but yeah, that's the thing.
So let's go back a little bit. So you're an attorney. What kind of specialty did you start in, like when you first got your license?
Yeah, I came out to LA with my eyes on the entertainment industry, like so many.
Oh, cool.
And I started out actually in a local kind of very hardcore litigation shop that represented many stars in litigation. And I did that. And I found that it was not conducive to a lifestyle that I wanted. I was not good enough at separating work from not work, that I wanted to just be adversarial constantly. So I shifted and I went to one of kind of the large law firms, biggest place on the planet type places. And I did mergers and acquisitions and finance, so securities transactions, for about 6 years, and did that through the internet boom, and then went into the internet bust. And at that point, things took a very different turn. So I had at that point done the thing where I went high school, college, law school, job, and I'd never taken any time off. So after the dot-com bubble burst, and it took a while for things to get going again, I left law for a couple of years, and I ended up making a movie. And the guy who directed and co-wrote the movie is my partner, Tom Zuber, and he and his brother, Jeff Zuber, who also co-wrote, had just started our firm with the two of them in a kitchen with no clients. And they asked me if I wanted to join. And for about a year, I told them they were out of their tree. But we worked well enough together on the movie, which was definitely an intense setting, It just made sense. And these were best friends. Back in those days, we didn't have any clients anyways. And it was just a move that I made to continue having an enjoyable life. That's over 20 years ago now. And I'd say it's safe to say that maybe we overachieved a little bit. And at this point, we're about 25-ish attorneys right now. We were close to 50 before the pandemic. And we are stationed across the United States, still headquartered in LA in the sense that Tom and Jeff and I are all here, but we've got people in lots of places and we're pretty much fully remote. So we're happy to work with attorneys who, wherever they may be found, if they know what they're doing. And that's one of the advantages that we still have over some of the big firms that we otherwise would be competing for people with. So in any case, I did the entertainment thing. We founded the firm. When we first did the firm, you do what comes in the door. And in LA, a lot of that was intellectual property work. And of course, we made the movie. We were able to kind of service the independent entertainment industries and film and music and TV. And that's really where I learned intellectual property law. And then we're all hard science geeks, have been forever. In 2010, I was a member of a social group I'm still a member of that's very media, entertainment, technology oriented. And these two guys came in talking about Bitcoin and blockchain. And I uttered the two dumbest words of my life. Those words were tulip bulbs in reference to the Dutch tulip bulb mania.
Yeah.
The two guys who I uttered those to are now both billionaires. At the time, you could mine Bitcoin on a laptop and it was going for about 10 cents as opposed to the current 100,000 or so. 2014, I did that same thing again with Ethereum. A friend of mine who's still a friend told me buy this stuff, 30 cents a token, but I didn't have time to figure it out. You needed Bitcoin to buy it. That was the whole thing back then. So that didn't happen either. And we know where that turned out. And for anyone who doesn't, ETH is going for probably $3,700 today, something like that. However, everything happening for a reason. 2017 ICO Mania made this, that's initial coin offering for anybody who wasn't paying attention, made this about securities law. And being a securities attorney and having been surrounded by these now very wealthy knuckleheads for 6 years, that was when I really got motivated to do some reading and analysis. And I came to a realization that the distributed ledger technology, which a blockchain is a type of distributed ledger, is earth-changing technology with ridiculously profound consequences, repercussions, use cases, whatever you want to call them, right up there with artificial intelligence and quantum computing, but a lot less intuitive for people to understand. So I wanted to be involved right there. And then the other thing that I still can't explain to this day, for whatever reason, my brain just understands the software architecture structure underlying a distributed ledger or agentic artificial intelligence flow in ways that most securities attorneys just don't. And that in turn has made us very popular. We've had probably close to 150 clients in distributed ledger tech over the last 7 or 8 years. And then that in turn has a virtuous cycle. So you learn all the different use cases, how to be innovative and work in one area so that you can use it in another area. And it just perpetuates to a point where now I can just consider myself an evangelist for the technology, which is amazing technology, and really look towards trying to foster responsible adoption across the board, recognizing that any real systemic change in how we live our lives is a much longer term item, but baby steps.
Yeah, because I do remember hearing blockchain was going to change like a lot of big things a few years ago, and hear about it as much.
Yeah, like anything else with the adoption valley, there's the hype cycle, and then things don't measure up, and there's a major dip, and then things come up more gradually.
Sure.
But I can give you a very quick, this is what I use on the keynote address type thing, on why this all matters so much. If you go back to the dawn of human civilization, you might find a person in a cave counting things like mammoth steaks and berries and axe heads. And that person is a centralized ledger. They are the only one that has that list and has that information. And they may give it to somebody. It might be chief of the tribe gets it, but the chief of the other tribe absolutely does not get it. And believe it or not, from that point through 2009-ish, everything has been about centralized ledgers. whether you're talking about economics or society or government, what have you. And moreover, the government finds the centralized ledger to be a really convenient place to regulate. We license certain professions and individuals who are going to have their fingers on that ledger. We tax based on that ledger. If you think of the typical W-2 employee, they don't pay the government taxes. Their employer pays the government taxes, and the government doesn't have to bother going after them. And, that's something else where it's just, there's a ledger. And if you look at the IRS, it's how do we manage this gigantic amount of information that is effectively a ledger that the IRS has to have? And that's why you've got all the different tax forms and everything else. So it's really huge, even though compared to artificial intelligence, we've been talking about in science fiction for 70 years or so, whenever Metropolis came out. And people are used to those ideas, but blockchain, much harder to get a mental grip on.
Yeah, I think for the average person, it just seems a little complicated.
It is. You notice I didn't try to explain technically how it works. We made that mistake years ago. Everybody was like, okay, this is how the blockchain works. And we got Bob and Carol and Alice, and this one sends this thing there, and this one sends that thing there. Yeah. The other piece is the public-private key pair that you need in order to have a wallet on chain to do stuff is inherently complicated and off-putting. And I execute like an absolute moron. I can break a keyboard just by touching it. When I hit a button that's going to send $50,000 to some long string of characters, it's just hard. But what's happening now, which is exciting, very exciting, is you've got agentic artificial intelligence coming into play. And that is the distributed ledger's new best friend, because that user experience may be absolutely horrible for a human, but for an agent, it is nothing. So, you're going to be looking at circumstances where you tell your agent in regular language what it is you're trying to accomplish, and your agent goes and deals with your public-private key pairing and your liquidity pools on a DeFi exchange or whatever else you're doing. That's going to change everything in terms of Web3 adoption.
So I want to ask you, what kind of challenges are you facing being in such an uncharted industry? It's still so new compared to more established things.
Yeah, the challenge is the opportunity. I am a very good M&A attorney. However, even in Los Angeles, there are probably a couple thousand very good M&A attorneys. And unfortunately, the clients can't really tell one from another. It's a who you like. It's a difficult thing to generate business from that perspective. In the distributed ledger space, which by the way is moving into M&A. So for anybody who's viewing and looking for doing a transaction in M&A that has a distributed ledger / token element, please contact me. That's putting the shameless plug aside. When I go to a room at a conference that's a distributed ledger tech or Web3 conference, I'm usually one of the only lawyers in it. And even when I go to one that is government oriented, there's a few people, and I'll do a shout out to the Chamber of Digital Commerce, who I absolutely love and adore, to Washington Lobbying Group. And there's a group Stand with Crypto. There's stuff out there, but it's a lot smaller and there's plenty of work for everyone. So a lot of the draw for me is just, okay, that's the whole joke about why do you rob banks? That's where the money is. It's just an area that I have a passion for, that I'm really good at, that there's not that much competition in. So I'd be very foolish not to. And by the same token, no pun intended, tokens don't stop at borders. So there's an international component that is extremely important. And from a legal regulatory standpoint, the government is left with the situation of, well, how do I regulate stuff if when I regulate it, it just makes people leave the country and do it anyways and still have an effect here? So, the result of that is I travel a lot, and I get to go to some really cool places. And a lot of them I go, and not only am I one of the only lawyers, I'm one of the only United States lawyers, which still just amazes me. Hopefully none of the competition's listening or watching. Haha. So that's a very long answer to your question. That's the deal.
Yeah. So since the government seems like they're behind, how does the legal profession ensure the blockchain adoption is going to be?
Yeah, they don't have to. The genie's out of the bottle. And the short answer is that the technology always wins. And I said that to somebody recently and they gave me a look and started talking about the Terminator with artificial intelligence. And that's not really what I mean by the technology always wins. You can't stop progress. You've got the whole Jeremiah Ludd in the UK way back when trying to break the factory because it was stealing jobs back then from manual laborers. That's going to happen. And like I was saying a second ago, if you try to stop it here, it's just going to go overseas. And because we're not in a country that'll drop an iron curtain around the internet and totally wall ourselves off, it's very hard to keep that from being something that is available to the United States. We've had this before. Online gambling is a good example. For a long time, there were a lot of online poker houses which poker is not gambling, as I understand. It's a game of skill. But in any case, they moved offshore and they got at it through finance. So it used to be that you could make a deposit using your MasterCard or Visa and play poker, but you're not going to get your winnings back because MasterCard and Visa were prevented by the US government of making those particular transactions. And that effectively killed the industry.
Yeah.
The difference now is the nature of blockchain is that it allows for the transition of value. So you can't stop the value at the border. What the government did try to do, and it's now been acknowledged, is what is now lovingly known as Operation Choke Point 2.0, where they leaned on all the banks to say, hey, if you're working with a particular industry, people in digital assets or people in cannabis, we're going to look a lot closer at you and make your life very difficult. And the result of that is that it was very hard to get banked and to be able to bridge between the digital asset financial system and the fiat-based financial system. And that's problematic because you have to pay taxes in fiat. A lot of other things too, but that one's huge. So that was troublesome. That's now out of the way. The new presidential administration has, as a push to make America friendly to innovation in the digital asset space, actually circulated things that acknowledge that Operation Choke Point 2 took place and stating that we're not going to do it again. And hopefully that holds in all future administrations. Time will tell.
Interesting. So tell me, who is your ideal client?
Somebody who can afford to pay legal fees to start with. That's how helpful. We're blessed that we get to choose a little bit now. So there actually is a good answer to that other than somebody who can afford to pay legal fees. We tend, and this is not just me, this is the firm in general. We tend to really enjoy working with people who are pushing technological envelopes, but in a way that is not simply profit motivated. There's so much going on now. In our firm, we do a lot in longevity. We do AR, VR, metaverse. We do work in cannabis and psychedelics to the extent that it's legal. We really do have the ability to just say, okay, it sounds corny, but let's go make the world a better place. And we're a small firm. We think of ourselves as a family business. Most of the equity partners have known each other for a couple of decades.
Yeah.
We have that ability. So, when I see somebody who is doing something that is novel and solves a big problem, and that's exciting to me. And that problem that could be across all kinds of verticals. So that might be somebody who's figured something out in Web3 gaming and music. It might be somebody who's not necessarily tech focused at all. We've got a wonderful client that has got a new brand of vegan donuts that they're putting out. And I have 2 kids and I have to say, they taste pretty awesome.
Okay.
And there's no artificial sweeteners in them whatsoever. And they're vegan and they're not a tech company, but I like to think making the world a better place. It's a broad answer to the question, but I can tell you what we're not looking for. We're not looking for people who are trying to just make a profit, often at the expense of less knowledgeable people. And there's a lot of that, especially in digital assets. Just get the token out there and people will buy it and speculate, where we don't need to be involved in that.
Oh, is that like the pump and dump thing?
Yeah, it is. I have to be a little careful about referring to it that way because there's a lot of different models out there and anything can be pumped and dumped intentionally or unintentionally. But human nature, unfortunately, likes to get rich quick.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It's one of the truest statements possible. And as I mentioned, there's things out there that are not illegal because the law hasn't caught up.
Sure.
Probably should be. A lot of that is consumer protection oriented. There's the people who don't understand the space, don't bother trying to figure it out and just throw money into something because their friend did, they're going to lose their money. It's gambling. It's playing blackjack. It's throwing the dice in Vegas. It's just that, but that's something that's very possible right now. And I'm not banging a drum for more regulation, but at the same time, there's a place for regulation. Absolutely.
Yeah, people need to do their own research.
Yeah. Yeah. But people don't know how to do their research. But the thing is, it's not any different than the stock market is, to be honest. If I go onto my Schwab site and I pick a particular stock and I click on their securities filings, I'm a little better than average in the sense that this is actually my trade. I've done some of those filings, so I at least know what I'm looking at, but making sense of the economics on it, no, I have no idea. You can make the argument like, all right, is this better or worse? And the government is going to say the stock market, though, we've got brokers in between the public. It's not as much as it was before, because now there's a lot of kind of zero trading fee brokers that aren't providing professional advice, but they're still regulated. But you still have execution rules and all kinds of things of that nature. None of that stuff exists in the digital asset world. And the people in charge of creating the laws to put it there barely understand it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a while.
Josh, how can our listeners get a hold of you if they want to hire your firm?
So best way is just email. It's my first initial and last name, J Lawler at zuberlawler.com. That's ZUBERLAWLER.com. I am also on LinkedIn, of course, and respond to that. I am also on WhatsApp and Telegram and Signal and WeChat and any other platform that one of my clients or horde of friends in this space insist that I'm on. It's not hard to find. I can catch the tiredness in my voice there. Man, anybody who's out there that's a developer, like some AI that would just take all of the different channels and funnel it to one place, dedupe it, and make this easier would be outstanding. And unfortunately, I'd have to integrate with Microsoft, which is a problem. It's a lot easier to deal with Gmail than it is to deal with Outlook.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, you said someone a great idea. So hopefully somebody listening will create that for you. And one thing I like to ask my guests is about their connection to Los Angeles. And I understand you are in Rancho Palos Verdes, which is a really amazing place. For anybody out there who might be moving around Los Angeles or moving to Los Angeles and maybe considering Rancho Palos Verdes, what do you think about it? How long have you been there and what do you like about it?
So I have been here now for, I guess it's been 10 years or close to it.
Awesome.
And I lived in various places. I lived in Hollywood for a long time. I've lived in Marina Del Rey in the Venice area 4 or 5 years in there. This is a spectacular place to have a family. And that is why we came here.
Yeah.
The schools are decent, but it's peaceful. It's quiet. Believe it or not, our house that we had before we moved down here in Hollywood had a beautiful view over the valley. It was a little bit quarter-mile north of Mulholland, so just up on the hill.
Yeah.
Broken into 5 times. 1 while we lived there and 4 while it was vacant and we were funneling things.
Was it the bling ring?
Yeah. And it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. I'm not going to say that Palos Verdes is crime-free, but compared to Hollywood or the Venice area for that matter,
yeah,
it's night and day. Now, the downside is I'm 25 minutes to the nearest freeway. I'm a hermit down here. I hang out with my kids and I travel to a lot of conferences, and that's how I get my broadening, because it does take an awful lot to move me out of my house to get in my car and drive for 25 minutes to get to the freeway and then however long it takes to get wherever else.
But at least it's not terribly far to LAX for travel.
No, not so bad. It's 35 minutes with no traffic and an hour at worst, really. So that's not bad. And Long Beach is about the same distance, which is, for anybody looking for a kinder, gentler airport to deal with, big recommendations on Long Beach and Burbank if you're up north.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. I've never flown out of Long Beach, but it's not that much further than LAX.
Yeah, from where I am, not at all. My mom will fly Southwest Phoenix to Long Beach to visit. She's 88 years old, and it's better to have her not have to deal with all the walking that LAX puts you through.
Yeah, it's so huge. Any favorite restaurants to recommend or coffee places in Rancho Palos Verdes?
It's not in Rancho Palos Verdes. And again, we're on the family front. My kids and I do Saturday and Sunday mornings frequently at the Black Bear in Torrance, just on the corner of CH and Hawthorne.
Yeah.
And we're big fans of that just for atmosphere and how it is. If you ask my daughter, she would tell you Dragonfly Thai in the Peninsula Sayre area, which is very good Thai food. Big recommend on the Tom Kha Kai, especially if you have a cold.
Okay.
We very much miss Admiral Risty's. And that was a very high-end-ish seafood restaurant that was pretty good, had a great view. And it is now a Chase Bank branch. And I will tell you, we cried a little bit when that happened.
Definitely, we don't need another bank.
It was, yeah.
Well, thank you, Josh, for joining me today, for sharing about your law firm and blockchain, which most of us probably didn't know a whole lot about. And of course, about your recommendations in Rancho Palos Verdes. And for those of you listening, if you love to hear the story that we had today and the conversation, please and subscribe and comment. That helps the channel. And leave a review as well, and because that really helps us grow. I'm Jason, and I will see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the LA Insider. I hope today's conversation gave you a deeper look into the people and neighborhoods that make Los Angeles so dynamic. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves LA just as much as you do. I'm Jason, and I'll be back next week with another inspiring guest and more stories from the heart of the city. Until then, stay curious, stay connected, and keep exploring LA.